first baby. And then we had another daughter, Holly. And then we had another daughter, Haley, Heidi, Holly, and Haley, and which was cute. But even now in my 60s, Heidi, Holly, hey, which one are you know? And then we had a son, and we named him Julio with a J. So
Did you ever call the dog by one of the kids' names though?
no.
I do that. I'll call my dog by my daughter's name and my daughter by my dog's name.
So, well, our dog's named Minnie Pearl, so I don't know. And we started to name her Ramona and call her Romany, but Ramona had just passed away. We said, we can't do that. We can't do that. So we named her Minnie Pearl.
She got a kick out of it.
She with it. So anyway, I came in late from a trip one night, and my wife, Rita, she met me at the door. Good night, have fun, they're yours. She gave me a kiss and a hug, and she went to bed. And I looked at Heidi and Holly. Again, Heidi was 4, Holly was 2, and y'all want to play. So we did till about 2:30 in the morning. And I always told them a story, but so late I just said, well, let's say our prayers. And I said a little poem prayer, and Holly was gone. She was asleep. Heidi was wide awake. She said, do you think God could bring me something if we ask him? And I said, well, we'll ask him. What would you like? She said, I'd like to have a rose. You think he'd bring me one? And so anything to get her to go to sleep. It was about 2:30 in the morning. And so we asked God for a rose. And then I walked back in again. I said, how come you want a rose so much? She said, because I've always wanted one. They're so pretty, and I've always wanted one. And I'm thinking, all those years, you're 4. And I didn't say that. And so the next night at our little time, I told them a story, and we were going to say our prayers, and we held hands, just Heidi, Holly, and me. And Heidi started crying. Her hand was shaking. I looked down, lips protruding, and her tears rolling. I said, what's wrong? She says, how come God didn't bring my rose? You think he forgot? And so I didn't know what to say. I said, well, we didn't mention the color of that rose, which I thought was very clever. And she said, did he need to know that? I said, maybe he did. She said, well, I was thinking of a white one. And so we asked God for a white rose. And I couldn't hardly sleep thinking about it, because those were not easy to find. You couldn't just go down to Safeway or Walmart and find one. And so I got up the next day, and I didn't mention it to my wife or anything, and I went to this little town in DeLand, Florida, and played this little small church. Had a little center aisle and 2 little sections. I'd never been there before, but the pastor said, well, I played my heart out, and the pastor said, well, come meet us for refreshments next door at the parsonage. So I said, well, I'll put my guitars away. And about 20 minutes later, no one had been in the building. This little lady just kind of burst through the back door. Are you Doyle Dykes? I said, yes. She said, God told me to bring you something from my garden. She had something wrapped in foil, a little slender package. And I said, God told you? And she said, God told me to bring you something. Are you Doyle Dykes? And she asked me about 3 times. I didn't even know the word autism back then, But anyway, and she walked up and had this little package and handed it to me. I said, well, I only enjoy eating this from your garden. She said, I wouldn't eat that if I were you. She said, you better look at it. And she had these big, thick glasses, and I'll never forget that look. She must have been in her 30s, it's hard to tell. And I said, okay, and I opened the package, and there was one little white rose. And as I just couldn't hardly believe it, and I said, well, this isn't mine. I got all teared up. She says, well, God told me to bring it to you, Brother Dykes. And I said, yes. And I told her the story, and she said, well, that about Heidi and knowing the rose up her. She said, well, that's nice. She just walked out. And I'm thinking, is that what angels do? Or is that an angel or something? I watched every step. I think she's going to float. And I got the rose home to Heidi the next day. And I'll never forget, she ran out to my truck. And before I could even get out, she was up in my seat, grabbed me by the neck. Good to have you home, Daddy. And I reached over. I said, there's a present for you. She said, it's my rose, isn't it? And she knew what it was. And before she even looked at it, and she opened it up, and she says, and I had it in that same little white, and she says, and it's white, just like we asked. I didn't tell that story for a long time. years later, I wrote a song and started telling that story. Now I've told it all over the world. Mainland China even, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Japan. This is White Rose for Heidi. Amazing how things come full circle. About 2 years ago, I had a cancellation. I ended up going to this big church in DeLand. It happened to be a spawn off of that little church, and now this great big church. And this little lady bumped into me, and come to find out she was a lady that almost 40 years ago gave me that white rose. And at the Opry, it was her 75th birthday, and I brought her out and Heidi, and it's amazing how things can come full circle, and was able to share that on the Grand Ole Opry. And it's all because, too, of this thing right here that opened the door. And I'm so thankful that I met your dad and Merle Travis and got into finger picking, and it's a great thing. It really is. Beautiful things come out of this. I'm thankful. I'm very thankful to be here.